Picture this. It's 1645 in feudal Japan, and the most legendary swordsman in Japanese history is about to die. His name is Miyamoto Musashi, and he's never lost a single duel in over 60 battles. But instead of taking his secrets to the grave, he decides to write them down in what would become one of the most influential books ever written. Now here's where it gets interesting. Musashi didn't just write a manual about sword fighting. What he created was something far more powerful, a blueprint for winning at anything in life. And the crazy part, people are still using his strategies today, nearly 400 years later, to dominate in business, sports, relationships, and personal development. The book is called The Book of Five Rings, and it's structured around the 5 classical elements of nature that ancient Japanese philosophy recognized. Each element represents a different layer of mastery, and together they form a complete system for achieving excellence. Let's start with the foundation, the Earth Book. Think about Earth for a moment. It's solid, reliable, the ground everything else is built on. Musashi understood something that most people today completely miss. You cannot build a skyscraper on quicksand. Before you can execute brilliant tactics or advanced strategies, you must master the fundamentals. This is where most people fail. They want to jump straight to the advanced moves, the secret techniques, the shortcuts. But Musashi learned through decades of life or death combat that the person with the strongest foundation wins. In his world, a shaky foundation meant death. In our world, it means failure. The Earth Book teaches you to see the bigger picture before you zoom in on details. It's about understanding your environment, your resources, your true position. Whether you're starting a business, learning a skill, or trying to improve your life, you must first build that unshakable foundation of basics. Master the fundamentals so completely that they become second nature. Then, and only then, can you start building upward. What makes this so powerful is that Musashi wasn't some philosopher sitting in an ivory tower theorizing about life. This man lived by these principles when his life literally depended on it. Every strategy he teaches was tested in real combat, refined through experience, and proven to work when the stakes couldn't be higher. But here's what makes the Earth Book revolutionary, and why understanding it can completely transform how you approach any challenge in your life. Musashi breaks down exactly what he means by knowing the fundamentals, and it's not what you think. Most people think fundamentals are boring. They're the thing you rush through to get to the real stuff. But Musashi discovered something counterintuitive through his countless battles. The person who has mastered the fundamentals to an extraordinary degree will defeat someone with fancy techniques every single time. And I'm talking about mastery so deep that these basics become instinctive, automatic, effortless. Let me give you a modern example that will blow your mind. Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player ever, spent more time practicing basic layups and free throws than any other NBA player. While others worked on flashy dunks and complicated plays, Jordan was in the gym at 5 a.m. perfecting the fundamentals that won games. That's Earth Book thinking. But Musashi takes this concept even deeper. He talks about something he calls the true path. This isn't just about practicing basics. It's about understanding the underlying principles that make everything else possible. In sword fighting, this meant understanding timing, distance, balance, and rhythm at such a fundamental level that you could adapt to any situation without thinking. Think about this in your own life. If you're trying to build a business, what are the true fundamentals? It's not the latest marketing hack or the newest social media trend. It's understanding your customer, creating real value, managing money, and building systems that work. These basics, mastered completely, will take you further than any shortcut ever could. Musashi also introduces a concept that modern psychology has only recently caught up to: the importance of mental models. He talks about developing what he calls the strategic mind, the ability to see patterns, understand cause and effect, and think several moves ahead. This isn't natural talent. It's a skill you develop through disciplined practice of the fundamentals. Here's where it gets really interesting. Musashi wasn't just fighting other swordsmen. He was fighting the greatest warriors of his era, people who had trained their entire lives for combat. And he never lost, not once. How is that possible? Because while they focused on techniques, he focused on principles. While they memorized specific moves, he internalized universal truths about strategy and human nature. The Earth Book teaches you to think like this. It shows you how to identify the core principles underlying any field or challenge. Whether you're learning a sport, starting a career, building relationships, or pursuing any goal, there are fundamental truths that govern success. Find these truths, master them completely, and you'll have an unshakable foundation for everything else. But here's the part that most people miss, and it's crucial. Musashi warns against what he calls surface learning. This is when you collect techniques, tips, and tricks without understanding the deeper principles behind them. Surface learning makes you fragile. When conditions change, when you face something unexpected, you crumble because you never built that solid foundation. Deep learning, Earthbook learning, makes you anti-fragile. You become stronger when facing challenges because you understand the underlying principles. You can adapt, improvise, and find solutions because you're not dependent on specific techniques. You're operating from fundamental truths. Musashi gives practical advice for building this foundation. First, he says you must study your craft with complete dedication. Not casual interest, not whenever you feel like it, but with the intensity of someone whose life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Your career, your relationships, your happiness. These all depend on how well you master the fundamentals of being human. Second, you must practice what he calls 1,000-day training and 10,000-day refinement. This means there are two phases to mastery. The first 1,000 days are about learning the basics and making them habit. The next 10,000 days are about refining those basics to an extraordinary degree. Most people quit after the first phase and wonder why they never achieve mastery. Third, and this is perhaps most important, you must develop what Musashi calls no mind. This doesn't mean not thinking. It means thinking so clearly and fundamentally that you're not clouded by emotions, distractions, or surface-level concerns. You see situations as they really are, not as you hope they are or fear they might be. The Earth Book also addresses something that's incredibly relevant today: the problem of information overload. In Musashi's time, warriors could be paralyzed by too many techniques, too many styles, too many options. Sound familiar? Today we're drowning in information, courses, strategies, and advice. Musashi's solution is elegant. Master one thing completely before moving to the next. Go deep before you go wide. This creates what he calls the spirit of the thing itself. When you understand something so completely that you embody its essence, you don't just know about it, you become it. This is why masters in any field can make the most complex things look effortless. They're not performing techniques. They're expressing principles that have become part of who they are. The final lesson of the Earth Book might be the most powerful: understanding timing and rhythm. Musashi realized that everything in life has natural rhythms: when to advance, when to retreat, when to strike, when to wait. Learning to feel these rhythms, to synchronize with them, rather than fight against them, is a fundamental skill that applies to every area of life. Whether you're negotiating a deal, having a difficult conversation, launching a product, or making any important decision, there's a right timing and a wrong timing. The Earth Book teaches you to develop sensitivity to these natural rhythms so you can act in harmony with them rather than against them. This is just the foundation, the Earth Book, the first ring of 5. But already you can see why this book has influenced everyone, from business leaders to athletes to artists, for nearly 4 centuries. It's not about sword fighting. It's about the fundamental principles of excellence, strategy, and human nature that never change. Musashi understood that whether you're facing an opponent with a sword or facing any challenge in life, the same principles apply. Build an unshakable foundation. Master the fundamentals completely. Think in principles rather than techniques, and learn to move in harmony with the natural rhythms of your environment. And that's just the beginning. The Earth Book sets the stage for everything that follows. 4 more rings, 4 more elements, each building on this foundation to create a complete system for mastery that's as powerful today as it was when Musashi first put brush to paper in that cave 400 years ago.